Ain't nobody dope as me. I'm just so fresh, so clean. Don't you think I'm so sexy? I'm just so fresh, so clean. Ain't nobody dope as me. I'm just so fresh, so clean. I love when you stare at me. I'm just so fresh, so fresh and so clean, clean. And a one, and a two. Welcome to the Sabby and Jaybe show. I am one of your hosts, James Fauntleroy. So good to see you, Sabs. Good to see you.
What's going on, JB? I see y'all. You dressed up for this one. I see
Of
you.
course, like Mama said, when you got company coming over, you better dress up. Remember back in the day when we used to have to dress up before you got on a flight?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now we just put on some slides, put on some pajama pants, and something really soft and comfy, and that's basically it.
I know it's weird looking back on it that we used to do that. Like, what was the point of that?
It's a whole decency thing, like you go out, you have to look presentable for people. You could be the meanest, ugliest person in the world, but as long as you look presentable. American culture, gotta love it. Anywho, just to let you guys know, the Sabby and Jaybe show is every single Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also see Sabby again later this evening at 8 p.m. And you have a huge guest tonight.
Yeah, Oliver Stone. Me and Dan Kovalik. I think we've had him on here before, JB. Dan Kovalik, he was the guy that confronted John Fetterman and said, I voted for you and you turned out to be terrible. That guy, and it went viral. Well, Dan Kovalik is actually really involved with foreign policy, and he's on his way to go meet with a Hague group in Colombia. So yeah, he's we should bring him back on. But it was him and Oliver Stone. So I started this series called From Vietnam to Gaza, and this is the first installment of that series, and then I'll have other guests on the next one.
Nice, very, very nice. That is awesome. Just to let you guys know, Oliver Stone was one of the people who directed the movie JFK. Just to let you guys know that. All right.
In Platoon.
Yep.
Yeah.
So with that being said, also you guys can catch me on my channel on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also see me here back on RBN on Sundays at 1 p.m. for the Jaybe show. If you guys haven't already, go ahead and do us a big, big, big favor. Go ahead and give us a like to the stream. I know sometimes your thumb feels a little bit heavy, but just make that weight of that thumb just hit the like button so that we can be able to reach more people. So thank you so very much for that. And don't forget to share and subscribe as well. Also, if you guys would like to, you guys can join our mailing list at revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. We have clips. We have live streams like this. You need to be notified. It's better to get from the horse's mouth instead of relying constantly on the YouTube notifications, okay? So you guys got that there as well. If you guys like to get in contact with us, you can get in contact with us at revolutionaryblackout@outlook.com. So, as always, whenever we have a guest, we want to be very respectful of their time. But we're going to show what we're talking about today. You guys have seen the thumbnail, but if in case you haven't and you just got here, well, let's take a look. We're talking about DSA, and we're going to be talking about the problem. We're trying to figure it out. And who best to help us figure it out is New York native Lucy is joining us right now. Lucy, so good to see you. So good to have you.
Hi, guys. Hello again. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things that we wanted to discuss, because a lot of people have their brains right now on people like Zohran Mamdani. We know that he is a part of DSA. We know that AOC was also a part of DSA. I think she still is a part of DSA. There's many people who call themselves progressive that are also part of that. If you can explain to us what are some of the issues that involve DSA that feel like a missing of the mark when it comes to policy, whether it's through the Democratic Party or whether it's through the DSA organization. If you can get us kind of a 30,000 foot overview of that, if you can.
Okay, well, I think, well, some of it is stuff that you guys already know and your viewers maybe already know, and there are DSA chapters in other cities. So I actually thought that people knew this stuff, but I was talking to Roger and he was like, he didn't really know that much about like the inner workings of DSA because he's in the suburbs, right? So, I was like, oh, I didn't realize that people didn't know this. You know, I just didn't realize this. So I kind of broke it down by like how much they probably make and how much through contributions and all of this stuff. And part of it is that DSA, and I'm sure it's similar in other cities, right? But maybe it's like more accentuated in New York just because of the size of the city and the fact that there's a lot of, for example, universities in New York City, you know, like NYU, Columbia University, stuff like that. And DSA has a very high kind of college kid membership, right? Like young professional membership. And I have nothing against that. Like, I was a college kid, right? And I was interested in DSA back when I was, like, interested in the debt relief stuff, because they seem to be working on that. But ultimately, what I realized is even on this, like, middle-class issues, like student debt, they're not that good, right? And the debt collective, like, I remember someone in the debt collective, like, they told me, they were like, because of the number of young professionals, college kids, etc., in the DSA, they would be very well placed, for example, to endorse a national student debt strike or a national student debt boycott. But they never did it. And when I asked about this, they said, like, they have like a debt group, you know, they were like, we don't do strikes. And I was like, well, that's weird, right, for a socialist organization. So, yeah, that's when I started to pick up on the fact that I don't know what these people are. They're not socialists because like it's ridiculous to say you don't do strikes as a socialist, right? That was like my first encounter, I guess you would say, with the DSA. And then there's other stuff that kind of came up in my encounters with them, and I'm sure it's different for everyone. But another one was when the North Star DSA, which I think is in the Midwest, I don't know what city it is, it might be Michigan, but they refused to endorse the National Railroad strike. They were like, you know, entryism is forbidden. Do you guys remember they were saying about Shama Sawant that entryism is forbidden and, you know, they're not endorsing the National Railroad strike. So I was like, that is already 2 times that a DSA chapter has refused to endorse a strike that a lot of people would be on board with, even people that are not socialists. You know? So, is it any wonder that DSA, you know, has kind of like a mixed reputation with this kind of thing? Why aren't they endorsing strikes? That doesn't make sense. So, you know, that would be the first thing. And then there would be how they operate in New York City, which is just like a whole other rabbit hole.
So I can say the DSA chapter here in Boston is a similar situation where it's mainly a lot of like Boston University, Boston College, MIT, Harvard, like students or graduates. And
Right.
it's really weird. I think the first time I caught wind of this was probably about maybe 6 years ago now. I forget, but probably about 6 years ago. And I realized that there were no working, like the people those policies would greatly benefit are not a part of the chapter. Like, so they did not reach out to low income communities, like just did not at all. And from what I gathered from the Boston chapter was that their sole focus was elections, getting people elected. So to Lucy's point, the way that we kind of push like mutual aid and organizing within the community, that did not seem to be a focus. That it seemed like to me The impression that I got was the sole focus was getting people elected, and that was like it. Like, and I'll give you another example. When we had the marches for Medicare for all, so some of the people that were part of the organizing here in Boston, that's where they started. They reached out to the Boston DSA chapter to get them on board as well. Not interested
They
at
weren't
all.
interested in the March for Medicare for All.
No.
No.
No. Like
Yeah.
that's not their thing. Like, so it sounds weird because if you look at their handbook, like the whole force to vote, like that comes from the DSA handbook, that when they have a narrow majority, this is what, or excuse me, that you remember they had like that small majority in the House, that was when they were supposed to take the opportunity to fight for Medicare for all, and doing so by forcing a vote. So that's actually where that came from. And when Force the Vote came about, like it seemed like they were totally hands off, didn't want anything to do with it, but it's in their handbook. So another one, BDS, don't take trips to Israel. This is another one, like, but these things are all for candidates and politicians, that like these are the things you're supposed to do, these are the things that you're not supposed to do. But the impression that I got, it seemed like DSA was mainly like this kind of PMC kind of club. Like that's what it seemed like to me, which is weird because they're talking about policies that are going to help lower income people, but at the same time it's like they don't have lower income people that are part of their organization, and no outreach to those communities, at least here in the Boston area. That's what I've seen.
Right. So, can you guys hear me better? Because maybe I'm just gonna turn off my ear for a second because people say they hear a sound, like an air conditioning sound. Just a
It
second.
sounds good to
Sorry.
me, but
Yeah, you it might be the AC that you have on. I hear it.
Let me turn it off.
yes, one of the things that I have experienced in doing mutual aid is that I have actually never seen DSA out there when it comes to different actions. I don't ever see them I've been to protests for Palestine, never seen them. I've been to mutual aid events, never seen them. And so also when it comes to neighborhoods, like I'm literally in one of the poorest zip codes in Orlando. I don't see them out here doing any help for the local people. And so it seems to me like their only thing is we can only change things by voting in the right person, which is like, okay, so when is that going to happen? Because every single time you get the right person, that right person ends up selling out. So why aren't you doing the work instead of depending on somebody else? That's one of the biggest gripes that I have.
Another thing I want to mention, because I know we're about to get into the money.
Yeah.
I did notice, like, if you look up the numbers, like they were able to gain a lot of members off of the Bernie Sanders campaigns. And because
It
Bernie
did, yeah.
ran, twice in a row, they like their membership surged, like for Bernie 2016 and Bernie 2020. And then people started leaving. Like during the Biden administration, I think they had lost, didn't we cover this, Jaybe? They lost like 10,000 people during the Biden administration. And now their membership is starting to surge again because they have another So it seems like to me their whole thing is just run these candidates, get them in, and that helps them make more money because it increases their membership. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, and every single, because I'm gonna full disclosure, technically I am a DSA member, technically, but I'm not a dues paying member because when I tried to apply back in 2019, I think it was 2019 when I tried to apply, they were like, oh, well, this is how much the dues are. I'm like, I can't afford the dues. They were like, oh, you could be a non-paying dues member. But then emails is like, I guess because I wasn't a dues paying member, they were really like slow with everything. And so I never went to a meeting, never met with anybody physically, never talked to anybody on the phone. It's just all email correspondence. And it's maybe like 2 or 3 emails tops. So as far as that's concerned, that's the only contact I've ever had with DSA.
Yeah, so I went to like the Bernie wave was when I joined DSA, and it wasn't even like the first Bernie wave, it was the second one, because I don't know if you guys know that in New York City Bernie didn't win in 2016. Like, and I realized that people weren't even gonna come out to, I guess he just like really wasn't in 2016 his like whole run wasn't really like focused on us or something. And then in 2020, he focused a little bit more on like immigration reform, and there's like a lot of immigrants in New York City, and people kind of rode that wave in 2020, not in 2016. You know, there were people that were already over it in 2016, but in 2020, that's when the Bernie thing took off in New York City, and that's around like 2019 or something like that. I like found out about their student debt stuff. Well, what ended up happening was basically COVID happened, right? COVID happened, and they were running a candidate in the Bronx, and her name was Samilise Lopez, and she was running for Congress, and she was kind of like following the AOC playbook, you know, like similar advertising, all of this stuff. Um, you know, and she didn't have a bad campaign. You know, she's like, I'm a working class person. You know, she like used to be, grew up homeless. She was a graduate of Columbia University, but she is from New York, you know. Um, and she kind of had her feet in two places, kind of like she could, you know, connect to these grads from DSA, but she also belonged to like a few organizations in the Bronx, and she kind of had both groups of people help her out for her campaign. But then when COVID happened, the DSA people, you know, since a lot of them are transplants, also, because like college kids, they don't stay in New York, right? Like, you know, maybe they'll come and they'll leave. So what ends up happening is that the DSA has kind of like a rotating supply of transplants. I don't know how else to put it. So that, you know, people will come, join the DSA for a few years. If they don't get tired, they like graduate maybe, and maybe some of these people, they're like, oh, you know, when they decide to have kids, they decide to move to the suburbs, they leave New York, right? This is like a very common thing. Which is why I like, they keep saying that you can do both elections and mutual aid, but I can guarantee that if you put all of your attention onto these elections, this rotating group of transplants that's in the DSA, I'm not saying this applies to everyone. There are New Yorkers that, for whatever reason, stick to the DSA, right? But this rotating group of people, it doesn't really, like Sabby said, it doesn't kind of take root in New York really the way they claim. And the reason for it is that they're kind of only paying attention to the elections, you know, and every time they have a mutual aid drive, right? It's they tried during COVID. Like I joined, like I at the time I was like more open to them, and I was like, why don't you do mutual aid in the Bronx, right? And the Bronx, by the way, is not what people think. Like people think everyone in the Bronx is like Chaz Palminteri or like Cardi B or something. No, the Bronx is very diverse. You know, there's a middle class here. You know, people think there's no middle class. Like I don't know what people think, but it's a diverse borough, just like Queens, Manhattan, you know, Brooklyn, whatever, Staten Island. But I asked them, I was like, you know what? There's a lot of need in the Bronx. Is there a mutual aid for the Bronx? And they put up like a few spreadsheets where, you know, you could like donate a little bit, but eventually they just kind of dropped the Bronx DSA thing. The mutual aid thing, because they were like, oh, we don't have enough resources. Well, that didn't stop them from like calling people constantly during COVID to get them to support the Samilise Lopez campaign. And when they called me, I was like, I actually kind of went down during COVID. Like I was like out for a month, you know, with like lung issues and stuff. And they didn't really do anything in the, you know, they didn't do like food pantry or like, they didn't do anything. The Samilise Lopez campaign, to her credit, she actually had like some food distribution and stuff as part of her campaign during COVID, but that was her campaign. It wasn't the DSA. So, it just goes to show how little they actually care about the Bronx, even when they are running an election there. And not only that, but like I have on word that there were actually, I'm telling you guys because Roger found it funny, but I don't. There were a few black people in the Bronx chapter of the DSA that wanted to secede from from Uptown Manhattan DSA, because there's no Bronx chapter. It's just Uptown Manhattan / Bronx DSA. And the reason for that is because the Uptown Manhattan / Bronx DSA chapter is essentially based around Columbia University graduates and like the people they know and stuff, right? So the people that actually like, you know, they were like trying to like separate Bronx DSA so that they could have more autonomy over the decisions, whatever. And they unanimously voted no. They voted no. So there is no Bronx DSA chapter. And not only that, when I, like, during the National Railroad strike, when they decided that they didn't want to endorse the railroad strike, I looked on Twitter, I was like, Bronx DSA, and I realized the name was not reserved. So if you look on Twitter and you Google Bronx DSA, that's me. That's my troll account, Bronx DSA. So that I'm just telling you, and like I'm like a, you know, it's not like I have significant influence, but that should tell you something, that they didn't even think to reserve the name on Twitter, you know. And so like after the internal coup or whatever against Uptown Manhattan and Bronx DSA failed, you know, that's when I realized, I was like, you know, this isn't, it's not going anywhere because they're not putting resources into those neighborhoods. Now, I'm not saying that there, you know, maybe they don't have enough resources. But even if they don't have that many resources, wouldn't it make sense if they don't have resources to put mutual aid resources at a time when they were running a candidate like San Luis Lopez in the South Bronx, to concentrate their efforts in the South Bronx, with like the poorest district of New York City? That would make sense for them to do something like that. But they didn't do it. Why? Because they're a bunch of like mask wearing, you know, like people that like half of whom left COVID during the pandemic. So, you know, why would they do something like that? So, you know, this is not a criticism of everyone that joins DSA, because they're like, I've met people that join DSA that they're great people and, you know, all of that, right? But overall, the structure is like, they'll never go to the South Bronx to distribute diapers the way like Rome does in Michigan, or like, you know, hand out meals, or pick up trash. But the Democrats do. That's the problem. Like the Democrats, they're connected to, like, I mean the centrist Democrats, you know, they're connected to like a string of nonprofits, you know, like New York Communities for Change, CASA. They have like, they give to like food pantries, this and that. So then when someone comes around, election time comes around, and they're like, oh, that guy, you know, okay, I know that guy. So, you know, it is a problem, right? And they don't seem to have an interest in tackling this.
I think what people have to understand too is that when they say organize, they don't mean mutual aid. They're not talking about community organizing. They're talking about organize to get people elected. So when they say, and they have this talking point, and you'll notice that some of the podcasters do it too. They'll say, get out there and organize, but they're not talking about organizing within the community. They're not talking about mutual aid. They're not talking about, you know, trying to win back against like some of these private equity firms against housing. Like they're not talking about that. When they say organize, they're talking about elections, and that's it. And it's important that people really understand that. So when you hear, you know, I think AOC is still a part of the New York DSA chapter, but it seems like, I remember reading she was removed from the national DSA chapter. And part of that had to do with the railroad strike, the Israel thing, et cetera. But when you hear AOC, and they all have the same talking point. So when you hear her say, we have to organize, she's not talking about like outside of politics, even though like at one point she did say that years ago when Afeni had spoke to her. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about organizing electorally. And what I find very interesting is with all the money that DSA was able to raise and the membership that they were able to gain, they could have actually started their own party. They could have started their own party, knowing that this isn't working for them within the Democratic Party. But what they do is they wait to the next and now you see right now they didn't even have to wait till midterms, right? Because they have Zohran Mamdani who is running, and that's their big key ticket candidate for right now. So they rely on having these candidates run to increase membership so that they can also make more money.
They can make more money. Like what I read when they say you must organize is you must recruit people to pay dues, membership dues. But then when there's mutual aid, there's needs for aid, what they mean is that you do the mutual aid and you pay us dues so that we can organize the elections. So like now that I'm onto their grift, and this is not against like, I didn't actually wake up that young in life. Like I see a lot of Generation Z people that are way more awake than I was at that time. So it's not to throw shade on young people or anything, right? but it is to say like, once you see this pattern for a while, you start getting older, you see these like repetitive patterns of them doing the same thing every election, that for those people out there that are just turning 21 or, just graduating from grad school or college or high school, so that you could know their history of DSA if you weren't paying attention at the time because you were, busy with school or whatever, and explain to the younger generation that these people are grifting on your membership fees. So if you want to vote for Zohran, you know what? Like, yes, he's better than Cuomo, whatever, but don't let them take your energy for granted, because that's what they did to us, right? They'll take your energy for the elections, but then when you need something, when your neighborhood needs some kind of aid, they never rally around that. Like, imagine if you had 50,000 people, the ones that canvassed for Zohran, picking up trash in the Bronx. Like, do you realize what kind of effect that would have? Like, not even physically or money-wise, just like psychologically on people in those areas. Be like, wow, like the city does not care about picking up trash in our neighborhood, and like there's actually a party that banded together to pick up the trash, and that barely costs money, but they'll never do something like that. It's just not possible. Like I've like lowered my expectations. Like I remember I asked some like local rep, Amanda Farias, I was like, will you at least pick up the trash in the park like during and they just don't care.
No, this is why I think people need to know, like, there's money to be made here. And this is not to say that everyone who joins is joining under nefarious purposes. I think, a good amount of people really want to try to change the Democratic Party. But to Lucy's point, when they say we can do both, they don't mean that they're going to do both. They don't mean that not at all. Like, so just pay attention to that talking point. Like they're saying you go out there and do those things outside of electoral politics, and they'll focus on the elections. So that's important for people to understand. I think it's a lot of wasted money, because when we talk about Zohran, for example, Zohran has a lot of great things that he wants to do, like free public transportation. There's some cities that have already implemented things like that. Like in Baltimore, there's the Charm City trolley bus that's free, and that's been free for years. So some places have already done that. But what Zohran is leaving out, and I think this is important for people to understand, is that many of these things have to go through Governor Hochul, right? So that's what I mean when I say that, like, those are great things to want to do, but is Governor Hochul going to sign off on that? Like, you can't just change public transportation without going through the governor, because the state owns public transportation. Same thing here in Massachusetts. Like, some things have to go through the governor. And that's the part that I feel like, and I get it, he's running for office, but as a candidate, these candidates have to be honest with the people that they're trying to get their votes, because people hear these things and they get excited about it. And they're like, yeah, we got to get that guy in there because he's going to do all these things. And the candidate who knows better doesn't tell them the logistics of how these things are going to be able to happen, the hoops that you have to go through, who has to approve a said policy that you want to accomplish. The candidates don't do that. Just like with Bernie Sanders, remember when Bernie said like he would implement Medicare for all on day one, but Bernie didn't tell you all the things that you have to go through, the processes to make that happen. Like you still got to go through Congress. So it's those types of things. Like I just think people need to be really transparent. I really do. Like, because people get their hopes up and then they get let down and all this kind of stuff. And I know Cuomo was awful and Eric Adams is awful. So I get it why people are excited about, Zoran and the policies. I get it. I think people need to understand that it's not as easy as he's saying it's going to be, that the governor does have to sign off on some of those things. And I do wish that candidates would be more honest with people about that. And then there's also the thing of would he be able to, would he capitulate to the Democratic Party, right? Because we've seen all these other DSA people do it. Don't forget, Jamal Bowman was, I don't know if he still is, but Jamal Bowman was a part of DSA when he was in Congress. Don't forget, Jamal Bowman, they were trying to at one point push him out of DSA because he was going to take that trip to Israel. I don't know if you remember this, Lucy, but he was going to go to Israel. And that's like a big no-no, like for DSA. So it's just, I don't know, man. I feel like with all the money that they've gathered over the years, they could have actually started their own party. That's just how I feel. I'll pass to you, JB.
Let me share this so that we can see this. Okay, perfect. So Democratic Socialists of America at Open Secrets. So the summary. Cycle of 2024. That's the latest we can do. So here it says, note the organization itself does not donate. Rather, the money came from organizations, PACs, their individual members or employees or owners, and those individuals, immediate family members, organizations themselves cannot contribute to candidates and party committees. Totals include subsidiaries and affiliates. So I think this is a 501c3, which means that legally they cannot criticize anybody as far as a political candidate. And so that's what I'm deducing from this. But you can see here that the donations from individuals from PACs, like for instance, there's a PAC that went to Jamal Bowman for $2,522. Also, and then from individuals, it's these that have been given so far. As far as the 2020 election, actually, let me take a look at that because I'm actually quite curious to see how much they did, because that was when Bernie was running. So view all recipients. Okay. So it doesn't show much, but at the same time, one of my questions is the worth of all the volunteering that they do, because that also, even though it may not be monetary, it can be significant to help out what could be done for these candidates.
Yeah, it looks like it went back to 2024, JB. It looks like it went back to cycle 2024.
Oh, wait. Why did it?
There.
Okay.
2020.
Yeah. So this is the 2020.
Yeah. So you'd have to go to, because if you go up, and you click on, do they have, see, they don't have, They don't have where you can check to see if like how much Bernie went towards like Bernie, whatever. You can go to members invested, because you're right, like they can't donate to the candidate directly. Um, that was
Yeah.
2018. Yeah, it changes to 2018.
Yeah. And that's the latest that you can go. That's the furthest you can go.
Yeah, that's weird. That's weird, because we all know like they had that was the start of the squad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is strange. But
It
yeah,
is.
it's just all the money that's going into. First of all, I have I don't like dues. I just don't. This is why I've never joined any of these organizations. I'm like, no, I'm not paying no dues. What am I paying? What are the dues going for? What is it going towards? So I
Yeah.
don't really, but that's another thing that will prevent people who are lower income from joining these types of organizations. Like telling them it's another bill for them. So
Yeah.
Well, I think I think my tweet is easier. I don't, because that one doesn't seem to have that much information. Maybe they. So here's the thing. It's kind of because this kind of confused me too, because they do have a good selling point where they're like, well, we don't get super PAC money, and maybe they don't get super PAC money, right? But if you have an organization that
you can share it, Lucy. You can share it your screen.
I can share it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So if you have an organization, right, they don't take super PAC money, right? But they always seem to fold at the end of the day. Like, that's like one thing, right? They seem to fold at the end of the day. And the second thing is that they have membership fees, right? So I don't know. Unfortunately, this is not big enough. Now I'm like screwing up. Can you see it?
I think I can pull it up and I can blow it up.
Oh wait, here we go. I think
yeah, if you zoom in, you can.
Yeah. Yeah, I know how to blow it up. I can do it from my
All right, sorry about that.
No, it's all good. Yeah, I got you.
All right.
Okay. So.
All right. So, yeah. So they have So if they have 16,000 new dues paying members, which means that before they had 50,000 members, and that means that and each membership is at least $5. It's like $5 for the low income membership. The standard is $15 a month. The sponsor is $25 a month, and then like the sustainer is $50 a month. Okay. So let's say that they only got like low income members, right? Just like as an assumption for like the minimum that they would make off of membership fees. That means that they would get $80,000 a month from the new membership alone, created by Zohran Mamdani's campaign. Almost $1 million a year.
So, but Lucy, what is that
money? $15 a membership.
What does that money go to?
Right. So that's. So it's at least, yeah. So it's basically between $3 million, like if you had the $15 membership, to $11 million a year. Like that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, just from the new membership created by Zohran's campaign. And what it goes to, I think, is elections and pamphlets and conferences and shit like that, and administration. Maybe there's like staff in the DSA, right? So like this is what I'm saying, like what, and it's the same thing that you guys are saying in a different way, right? When they say we can do both mutual aid and elections, I'm not saying that you can't do both. I didn't always have this vendetta against the Democratic Party. This is something that grew over time, like after I realized how they work, right? When they say we can do both, what it means is that we're going to take your membership fees and use it for elections, and then you do the mutual aid organizing, everything else by yourself, because we're not going to use any of the membership dues to do any mutual aid. So for those $3 to $11 million, and I'm not saying that that's a large amount of money in New York. Like I know that that's not a large amount of money in New York. But if you claim that you're a socialist organization, which I know they're not, right? But they pretend, so like I'm just putting that out there. They say they're some kind of democratic socialist organization, whatever. They say that there's not enough resources for mutual aid. But we're seeing right here that there is enough resources. And the reason is because they are so desperate to advertise themselves as like a serious party, right? And they do win a lot of elections in New York, that they're the ones that publish these stats and like made it easy for me to figure this out. If they wanted to grow a socialist organization, why don't they concentrate at least a portion of their efforts on mutual aid in the South Bronx? And then they could do why they have the money for it. This shows that they have the money. So they could put one out of the 11 million bucks that they probably made from the Zohran new membership, 1 million bucks into the South Bronx to distribute diapers, pick up trash, do a community watch, start a vegetable garden. Those are all things that they could do with $1 million bucks. Actually, those are all things they could do for 100,000 bucks, which is a very minor part of their budget, right? But when they came around doing mutual aid in the Bronx in 2020, all they fucking had was like a spreadsheet, and like they'll be like, oh, we'll organize a mutual aid, which means like, okay, if somebody needs a phone card or something, you donate 60 bucks to them or for whatever need, or you go deliver food to someone's doorstep. But it's not like they actually use their membership dues to actually deliver anything for the South Bronx. No, that stuff comes from like random people. Like I have a friend that started a GoFundMe for a vegetable garden, and he raised 20,000 bucks to do it, and he did it in like one of the NYCHA projects, but it had nothing to do with DSA. You know what I mean? So why don't they do that? And the conclusion that I'm coming to is, well, they don't want to. They don't care about this being a working class organization. And it's not that I have anything against college kids or professionals. Like, I was a college kid, right? But they have zero interest in growing a working class organization, because if they really wanted to do it, it actually wouldn't be that hard. Like, you can just take $1 million bucks out of those 11 million bucks, earmark it for the South Bronx, and just say, we can't just concentrate all of our efforts into recruitment, elections, and getting more kids from Columbia University to join. We have to turn this into a working class organization. And if they really wanted to do it, they can do it. They can do it.
And that's why there's so many different factions, right? Like, that's why you have DSA, you have Socialist Alternative, you have Workers Strike Back, you have like communist like organizations, Communist Party. Like, that's why you have so many different factions, because it's like, we know that the Democratic Party is not implementing policies for the working class. Like, they don't care about the workers, right? But at the same time, DSA, you're not a political party. You have policies that are going to benefit the working class. But all this money, like Lucy's talking about millions of dollars, that's money that could have been spent towards mutual aid. Like, think about like what, like those of us at RBN, think about what we could do if we had millions of dollars like that. Like, we're talking about, you could build clinics. Like, these are things that the Black Panthers did. Like, they built clinics, they had the free breakfast program, they did like the mutual aid grocery baskets and stuff like that. That's what I'm saying. Like, all this money that's going towards said candidate, instead of putting that money into the communities that really need it. And I think that's what me and Jaybe, like we've said this before, like, there's so much money being poured into electoral politics. Like, look how much Kamala Harris and Donald Trump raised in 2024. Look how much money. Remember, Bernie ran a grassroots campaign. Bernie got millions of dollars. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, this money is not being put in the places it should be. Now, I understand people in New York, though, because like, I get it. They don't have a Green Party candidate. They don't have like the independent is Eric Adams. We're just running again. He's right. Corrupt. Cuomo's corrupt. I get it. I get people saying, no, enough with the corruption. And from what I understand, what I read is that rent increased under Eric Adams' mayorship. So I totally get it, them wanting to put Zohran in. I just also want people to understand that I think he's going to be limited with what he can and cannot do. That's if they let him get in. I think they're going to try to rig it. to be honest. But at the same time, it's like we have to ask ourselves, are we putting our money in the right places? Like, I wish there was millions of dollars that was going into the Bronx or going into, you see what I'm saying? The Bronx is the poor, isn't it the poorest district, the poorest borough?
I mean, they say it's the poorest borough. I wouldn't say that everyone here is poor, but it's overall the poorest borough, and definitely the South Bronx is the poorest district. And at the end of the day, even if they spent $1 million on the Bronx, it's not much for a borough that's 2 million, like almost 2 million people, right? That's like less than $1 per person. But it's not just the money, right? It's the money and the presence. So in addition to the fact that these people barely go to like the Bronx and Staten Island, for example, at all, right? Because a lot of them are like college kids, transplants, like young professional stuff that they don't go. Maybe they'll go to Queens a little, stuff like that. But in addition to that, they like you can't spend $1 million in like just like everywhere in New York because you prefer to spend your time in Bushwick with your musician friends. And I'm sorry, but like that's the kind of the reason why the DSA has kind of the hipster reputation it has, is because it's nothing against, I love all people, right? You want to be a musician and live in Bushwick? All power to you. I wish you the best on your musical career. But they start having this reputation for, being a little hipsterish because there's like 8, 10, 12 chapters in Brooklyn, not even one chapter in the Bronx. They like, or Staten Island. I don't even know if DSA is in Staten Island. Probably not,
Staten Island's pretty conservative.
Staten Island is conservative, but actually Staten Island is one of the last boroughs, with the Bronx and Staten Island, where it's actually affordable to live for the middle class or to like buy a home or all of these things. So more and more people are moving to Staten Island. So all of these places are places that if they wanted to, do a working class, whatever organization, they should stop being afraid of the Bronx and Staten Island, right? And, get over their obsession with, actually, I'm not even sure I'm against the social club aspect of it, because I know that socializing is a motivator for people, right? But at the end of the day, you still have to understand that you got to get out of your bubble eventually. And it would be easier if instead of, obliging a bunch of college kids to like randomly go to the Bronx and Staten Island, which might be outside of their school schedule or, or whatever it is, if they had funds that were earmarked for the South Bronx and it went to that. And I guess, that's why I'm bringing it up, because it's like, if they really wanted to do it, and instead of just criticizing Zohran, because he might not get his agenda implemented. Well, a lot of people don't get their agenda implemented, right? And it is that doesn't make him unique as a politician. I don't think it makes him terrible as a person. But there's a lot of things that you can do even before getting elected. Like, if they really wanted to put money into the Bronx, and it's not just DSA, like for example a LaRouche organization, the organization that Jose is running with, Jose Vega, they seem to be a little bit more independent than DSA, so that's good, right? But at the end of the day, they want you to organize for them electorally, right? And they'll never do a diaper run in the Bronx, or like, do an event where they pick up trash, or like do a community garden or something. And I think over time it's just getting tired. Like, I don't even really want to volunteer for a candidate anymore, because it's like you're interrupting people in the middle of their day. This is what I remember back when I like tried to canvass for the squad, and all of these people that took advantage of my time. People, you're like trying to convince people to vote, and the people that will ask you like, well, what is this candidate doing for me? And if I had to be honest at this point, I'd be like, well, nothing. And and if they ask me like, what are they going to do for me in the future? Yeah, Zohran Mamdani might have the best of intentions, but since he's not doing anything now for the South Bronx, what is the guarantee really he's going to do anything in the future? Like it's kind of like the best judge of your behavior is what you're doing now. If you're not doing it now, what is the so I'm not saying he's not better than Cuomo. It's just it becomes very hard to like try to convince people. If you go out there,
Yeah, I mean it's I mean we've noticed this. I don't know how it is where you are, JB in Orlando, but here it's this same similar situation. Like they don't want to go to Roxbury, they don't want to go to Mattapan, they don't want to go to Dorchester. It's like, but those policies would greatly benefit those neighborhoods, but you don't even want to go talk to those people. I mean, it really is a class issue. Like I'm not even, it's so like you're pushing these policies that are supposed to be for the working class, but you yourself are being classist because you don't even want to go to those lower income neighborhoods. So I don't even know what this is. This is why I don't join, I'm not belonging to any of these organizations. This is why I never joined Socialist, Alternative, DSA, none of these things. Like, for one, dues is a no-no to me. I'm not paying no dues. And then two, is because like a lot of these groups are similar in the sense that like they only want to talk to a certain group, a certain class of people. They don't want to go into those neighborhoods. So how are you supposed to expand like your base? How are you supposed to bring more people in to fight back against those candidates that are taking like money from AIPAC if you're only going to talk to people within your gentrified neighborhoods? That's what I have a problem with. So that's why you don't see me join these things.
Yeah, I just want to reflect what Sabby was saying, especially about who you talk to. Look, let's be real. I live in the hood, and I don't see them out here, right? I don't see them out here in downtown Orlando, in the Paramore area. I don't see them out in near Mercy Drive. I don't see them out here in Pine Hills. I don't see them out there in the Americana area, right near Millennia. I don't see them anywhere near that area. If they are in any areas, that they're probably out there near Winter Park. They're probably out there, near Four Corners or wherever it's more middle class, right? And one of the biggest issues is that, and this is actually what one of the gripes I have, is that the people who are suffering the most from a capitalist system are the people that are the most ripe for the message, and they're not even striking while the iron is hot. You're not taking it, which means to me that DSA is not serious actually about doing anything or changing anything, because you literally have an army of citizens out there who literally want the system to change, who are suffering right now, day in and day out. Not about to suffer because from Trump's policies, but are suffering right now, have suffered through Democrat and Republican administrations. And yet you don't even want to come and knock on their door. You don't ever want to come and talk to them. You don't ever want to engage with them. You don't even want to get together some toiletries and hand them out to the people who are homeless on the street. You don't ever want to do feedings. I'm going to share something really quick because this is very important to me. Because there is a group out here in Orlando that's doing the damn thing, and it's not DSA, right? Here's one of the groups, and I partner with them all the time. Real Orlando, right? Real is an acronym for Revolutionary Education Action League, and they are actual socialists and communists, and they actually do work, on the ground every time. Let me just show you the events that is coming up. So, on Saturday, they have a skills workshop and teaching you how to make aloe, for sunscreen, right? From naturally. Then on the 17th, they have a movie night where they go over Cuban movies. The 19th, they have a self-defense program and de-escalation. I actually went through some of their de-escalation classes. It's phenomenal, right? 20th, which I'll be attending, is the Solidarity Hub, where they basically gather together food, toiletries, clothes, shoes. They get people who are barbers, hairstylists to do people's hair for free in my hood, in my area. By the way, I'm only about 5 minutes away from where they do their Solidarity Hubs. That's how close I am. 24th, they're doing a donation drive and then they're doing revolutionary recess. So they do these things. They've done constant classes on how to, emergency first aid, how to, save a life if in case things pop off, either with police or fascists. All these different things. They're doing this day in, day out. And on top of that, they actually have a farm in Pine Hills. Anybody knows from Orlando? If you know, you know. In Pine Hills, they have a farm and they grow the food and they use that food to feed the unhoused within our community. I don't see DSA doing one iota of that. So therefore, I'm like, here's this group that does not collect dues. They just collect, this is donations, all volunteer, and they're doing way more than DSA ever could. And they partner with other groups like Florida Palestine Network. They partner with the Students for Justice in Palestine. They do the African groups here in Orlando. They do the indigenous groups in Orlando. They partner with them too. So where is DSA? Because that's one of my biggest issues. If you really truly care about the bringing up the material needs of the working people, why aren't you doing these things now? And the same thing as your point for Zohran Mamdani. If you're not doing the things that you say you're going to do now, what makes me think that you're actually going to do for them, for me, once you get in office? Why am I going to reward you with a job if you haven't been doing the job already? Like, for instance, when people say you got to dress for the job that you want, or you got to act like you are in that position already, has he been doing that on the ground, not just running candidates for the Democrats, but actually doing on the ground tangible things for the community? Has he? Because if he hasn't, then that tells me a little bit about how he will actually govern. And this is one of the things that people really need to get through to their heads, especially when it comes to these organizations. Because if you're not doing what's really on the ground when they have a little, because look, hate to get, religious on you, but there's a scripture that says, if you're faithful in least, you're faithful in much. If you're righteous in least, you're righteous in much, right? Meaning, if you're willing by principle to do things on a small scale, that means you're going to be willing to do it on a large scale. And so I think this is one of the things that really is a testament to what they do or they don't do. Because if DSA is not doing that for the community, that means that they're never going to do it for the community. And they're just going to sit back on their hands and try to run candidates, and they're wasting all that time and money when it actually could have went to people who actually needed it.
Yeah,
and yet,
I think
just one second, I'm sorry. Adi Shah said something. Also, I just want to make sure that I highlight this too. She said, a hoodoo group, yeah, they're real too. And they also do great work in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Yeah. I think someone also said, like, oh, PSL is doing, I don't know anything about PSL because they're also in Brooklyn, by the way. So it's kind of like 2 hours away from me a pop. So it's just, there's a lot of stuff in New York that's kind of centralized around, like, and PSL is also, I don't know where they are, but they're far from me. God, I almost lost my train of thought. Oh, I was just going to say, like, I do think that there's a certain extent to which, like, Zohran, even though he's, like, the Muslim professional class, whatever, it's not like those people are not affected by the genocide, right? Like, the Muslim middle class is affected by racism, and I have nothing against voting for someone that's not working class, right? So that's why, to me, even though I do kind of think Zohran's an actor, like his mom was like a Hollywood, like not a Bollywood producer or something, and so I'm not sure yet if he's like an actor or how genuine he is, but I wouldn't, doubt that maybe he is genuine. Look, maybe he is genuine, and he is just kind of picking up on this rift basically between the racist middle class, right? The racist upper middle class and the Muslim upper middle class that realizes that there's no place in America for even the upper middle class if they're all like racist Zionists, right? But it's more about the organization and the fact that we've been told for years that the DSA doesn't have enough resources, they don't take super PAC money and they really care about the working class. But it's clear from their latest numbers that they do have the resources, and they do have the resources to invest something in the South Bronx. And I know that they're not going to be able to like produce housing for people with that kind of money, but they could do a community garden. You know, they could do a meal delivery. They could do trash pickup, and people really would appreciate this in the Bronx. You know, like there's like trash in a lot of neighborhoods because the city doesn't care about picking things up. That could be one thing, like community watch, because maybe there's like a way that people could figure out how to band together to de-escalate stuff instead of calling the cops, right? Um, uh, you know, um, accompanying people to the immigration stuff. Like, there's all kinds of things that you could do, like daycare. Having a block party. You could fund a block party. Have like a nice thing for the kids. It doesn't have to be something that costs so much money, but you would still have your presence felt, right? They have no interest in doing this, so
But that
I don't
that
know.
that also that also hurts them getting certain groups as well, because like for some voters, if they don't see you in the community, and when they do see you, it's because your candidate is running for office, that can be a
Right.
turnoff for some people. I mean, it just, and I heard it here too. I heard people say it here too. They're like, I don't care who's running. I don't see them in this neighborhood until it's time for them to run for reelection. Like that's a big
Right.
part of the problem. So they could be doing like work like within the community. It's just really weird to me. Like I've said this about a lot of these political parties. It's just like, why aren't you guys doing work within the community? Like as a party. Like, I don't mean one person go do this one thing, right? Like, I know AOC does like the book bag thing, yada yada. But what I'm saying, like, as a party, why is that not happening?
Right. I mean, I think like what's kind of sad is that um, AOC and there's a lot of look like there's a lot of people that like to rag on AOC. They're like, "Oh, AOC's rich. She's not really from the Bronx. She grew up in Westchester." Uh, there's a lot of people that were born in the Bronx and went to school in Westchester, or were born in Manhattan and live in the Bronx. That's not really like my concern. Like, I was born in Manhattan and I grew up in Queens and I live in the Bronx, right? That's not really like my concern, right? My concern is whether they follow through policy wise. And the reality is that as little as AOC does for the Bronx, she actually does more for the Bronx than the DSA, right? Because she'll do like book bag distribution, um, this, that, like little things. And then people are like, oh, I like her. She's Puerto Rican and she did book bag distribution, So it just goes to show that even if a little bit more of their budget was like spent as an organization, and honestly, like maybe I'm giving them too much advice to like save them, because I feel like whatever. But it's really more for the new people, the young people that are joining the DSA, that are like hopeful that it's like a method of organizing, that maybe they should pressure the DSA to put those $1 million into the South Bronx and do something, right? Maybe they should be doing that and not just trying to convince us to vote for Zohran without getting anything in return. Um, so, I mean,
Or
when I,
going or going back to
sorry,
sleep. Or going
yeah,
back to sleep.
they're gonna go back to sleep. Like when I ran against AOC, and mine was really more of a protest campaign than a real campaign, because all I did was like flyer. I distributed the war flyer, the one, because we were like trying to teach people that AOC voted for the Ukraine Russia war, right? That she's not really anti-war. And guess what? Like 50% of the people I talked to were like, "Who's AOC?" They didn't even know. Like, all of these Republicans are melting down over, oh, like, we are the dumbest district ever because, we voted for AOC. Half of the people here do not know who AOC is because they don't vote. They don't care about the elections. The politicians don't do anything for them. And they don't even know who the fuck AOC is, right? And eventually I just took down the flyer because it was like only in maybe like the Puerto Rican neighborhoods that they like automatically recognized her and stuff. And I was like, you know what? This isn't going anywhere. Half of these people don't know who she is, right? and then you have like all of these, both on the left or the right, melting down over the fact that our district voted for her. But first of all, maybe you should concern yourself with Mitch McConnell or whoever the hell you're voting for in your district, rather than like roasting us. But second of all, I'm telling you, a lot of people didn't know who she was. Like, I had to explain, oh, she's the congresswoman from this district. Oh, the lady with the straight hair, blah, 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 Puerto Rican. Like, you know, I had to, like, trigger their memory because, like, people did not know who she was. So, people are so disengaged at this point that if DSA or LaRouche or whoever the hell wants to run, if they have any kind of budget for anything at all, that they can do anything nice for the neighborhood, they need to do it, because it is extremely difficult at this point to convince anybody to care. You know, it's and it's kind of hopeless. Like, it feels hopeless because it's just like, you know.
I mean, if she did more mutual aid in her own district, then more people would actually know who she is.
Right. You know, I remember I saw, I mean, this has nothing to do with politics, but there was this video that went viral, and it was Jennifer Lopez. She went to her old house. I think she grew up in Throg's Neck. She went to her old house, and she was like, she told the owner of the house, she was like, this is where I grew up. And the guy was like, who are you? And she's like, she was like Jennifer, and he's like, who's Jennifer? You know, so it's just like, Jennifer, don't assume that people know who AOC is, Jennifer Lopez, whoever the fuck it is that you like, you think that they must know, because this is something. But a lot of people, they are not paying attention to Twitter. They are not paying attention to even mainstream media. Yeah. They don't know.
It's true, because it's true. Like, I always tell people, like, spend some time off of Twitter. Like, spend some time like getting off of Twitter, just because when you talk to people like in real life, like, they have no idea what we're talking about. They've never heard of most of these things.
People don't know. Like, I remember when I was canvassing for Bernie in like 2020, and I ran into this lady, and she's like, "You're voting for Bernie? That guy ripped off so many people." She was talking, she thought it was Bernie Madoff, the guy that ripped off all those people. Like, do you guys remember?
There were people, like, when I talked to people 2024 about the presidential election, right? And this is how I found out, I thought most people were going to stay, a lot of people were going to stay home. And most people told me that they were just not interested and they were going to stay home. But there were people who asked me, like, who is Kamala Harris? I'm like, the vice president? People don't know. I'm serious. Like, people just are not in tune. Like, some people are not thinking about politics at all. In fact, I would say a lot of people, they're just not interested at all. So just something we have to keep in mind. Like, what you see, the stuff that you see on Twitter, just keep in mind, like, that's a small segment of the U.S. population. So.
Yeah. And then there's like different age ranges and stuff, you know, like, so, you know, Zohran, like, okay, you know, he might be very popular within the DSA, but you go out into these neighborhoods where maybe there's a lot of boomers, or like, you know, maybe the cops and firemen brigade in Staten Island that people don't want to go visit. Like, don't assume that everyone's conservative. Like, maybe they've just never heard of your candidate. Like, maybe they don't even know who Zohran Mamdani is, you know? And, like, a lot of these progressives in the DSA, you know, they'll get butt hurt over the fact that, oh, you know, they're just those people, white people in Staten Island, they're not voting for Zohran Mamdani because they're conservative racists. Like, have you been to Staten Island? Like, I went to Staten Island. I go every year, actually, because there's like a New Year's Chinese festival. It's like full of Chinese people in Staten Island. They have like one of the biggest Chinese communities in New York City. And they do like a dragon, you know. So, you know, it's just like these assumptions that people make, that these, you know, they must not care, you know, like, and it just, it doesn't really it doesn't really work anymore because people don't. If anything, I encourage people to go canvas for Zohran Mamdani because they'll learn these lessons like the same way we did. That people absolutely have no idea what's going on, and that it's just like the kind of work it takes to catch them up. I think it would take $1 million, $2 million, $5 million invested in the South Bronx, doing events every day. If you want to catch people up to who these people are, because nobody knows. Like, they are so checked out.
No, they don't. They really don't. And I have to tell people, like, guys, take a day where you're just not on Twitter. Just not on Twitter and just talk to people in person, because it can be easy for us, I think, to, see all those, like the political stuff, like for example, the 2024 presidential election, right? There was a lot of engagement on X about Jill Stein and Butch Ware, etc. But when I talked to people in person, most people had no idea who they were. In fact, a lot of people told me they didn't even know what the Green Party was. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. Like, things that go viral and go, get a lot of views or whatever, like on X, that's not always necessarily reality when you get off of that platform and you talk to people in person. A lot of people are just not paying. In fact, I would say a good portion of voters don't even tune in to see what is up with the presidential election until we get very close to election day. So it's one of those things. I mean, even during Bernie 2020, there were people who didn't know who Bernie Sanders were because they weren't paying attention to the Democrat primary. And that's another thing. When do people vote more? Do they vote more in a primary, or do they vote more in the general election? Most people vote more in the general election. So that's another thing. So I just think a lot of people we have to remember that, what we see on Twitter is not necessarily what's happening in the streets.
There's a YouTube channel. I don't remember what the girl's name is. It's like this white girl with straight hair. I think she's a Zohran supporter. And she has been going to different neighborhoods to like ask people their opinions or whatever about Zohran. And the replies are really funny. I saw one where it was like she was asking somebody, she went to Harlem to ask people what they thought about Zohran. She like runs into this random West Indian lady, right? And she's like, who are you voting for in the election? And the lady is like, well, I don't know, I'm not on social media. I don't want to deal with any of that stuff. I'm not interested. I just want to live my life, and she's like, how long have you been living here? And she's like, I've been in this neighborhood for 40 years. Right? So, and she's like, oh, okay. And then she's like, do you like it? It's gotten a lot better over the years. Do you feel safe? And the reason that she was asking that is because she's white, right? And like 40 years ago, you wouldn't see a white person in Harlem literally unless they were like fresh off the boat, like we were. She didn't catch on to that, right? She didn't. It didn't automatically like enter her head that that's why she was asking her that question. And then she kind of just moved on to the next subject. She's like, so there are 2 or 3 people running. There's a young candidate named Zohran Mamdani, whatever. Have you heard of him? And she's like, no. So it's just, I think, maybe you guys can share that channel some other time if you ever have the time, because the replies are really funny and you can see it's just like, it's the same conversation, but it's like 2 different worlds. It's like the world of the progressive young DSA hopeful person that's like trying to get this person elected, and then the reality that like people are not paying attention to the same news cycle as you at all. So I don't know. It's like it's all of those things. Yeah, Max. It's like age. It's like race. It's like class. It's like what news channel you watch, what language you watch, like all of these people that are watching Univision, you're not gonna reach them until you put an ad on Univision. I mean, it's that out here.
I will say too, I think, I would say probably most of my friends are not even interested in watching the news at all. So, you know.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So, with that being said, this is some of the things about regarding DSA that it's really like it's like a big math problem. It's like what's up with them? And I just want to thank you for coming on to be able to give us this information and give us a great analysis and appreciate it. So if you can let us know like what you have coming up and where they can find you.
I don't have anything coming up. I gotta be honest. I kind of want to like relax and do my own life. I don't have anything coming up. You can reach out to me on Twitter if you want, but I don't have anything. I'm just gonna be watching you guys and whatever you have coming up.
All right. Well, I actually put her channel in the description, so you guys can go to Lucy's channel on Blue Moon Red Wine. So that's also in the description below, so you guys can see that. But Lucy, thank you so very much for joining us and having this great conversation. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much, guys. Have a good day.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. Oop. All right. So, with that being said, guys, you know what to do. Do the damn thing. Go ahead and press that thumbs up. You know you want to press that thumbs up, all right? I took an emery board to that thumb, made it all nice and shiny for you, even put on a couple of coats of clear coat on that thumb. Go ahead and do it. I'm sorry, the protein's kicking in that I had right before the show. So oh my goodness. Yeah. So let's get into the comments in the chat and then I'll wrap up. All right. So let me check on the Rumble side just to see what they had to say. If we have any Rumble rants, let's go over there. Okay. All right. We are good on the Rumble side. Let's go into the Rockfin. I know we got a few. All right. Let me do this here. Rockfin. Sorry.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I didn't even know I can go that high.
Oh, wow, Jaybe.
What the hell is wrong with me? Thanks for all the comments, Dave Burt. So good to see you on here. Appreciate it. All the engagement as well. And yes, there is a lot that's been going on, especially here, with DSA. Appreciate it very much. Let's go into the comments up here on the YouTube side. Let me check with the super chats first to make sure I get those out of the way. First, we have Roger Meadows coming in saying, run Democrats candidates specifically. I think we're referring to what DSA does. They only run Democrat candidates. They do not. That's another thing. They do not run anybody outside of the Democratic Party, even though there are candidates who are third party or independent that actually cater more to their policy platform than Democrats.
No, I mean, you have to be a Democrat, basically.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so that means you're tied to the party. What makes you different? Because if, like, for instance, if you're principally a Democratic Socialist, but you do not support any third parties that are on the left that actually carry more of what Democratic Socialists want, then really it's just a front group.
I mean, I think the whole thing of the project was to be that they were going to be a segment of the Democratic Party and try to make some changes within. So it's like,
yep,
I get what you're saying, but it's, yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, we got this one from Roger. He says SBX is South Bronx. It supports jurisdiction in New York City, New York State, and the U.S., specifically Torres District.
Yeah, I know. Remember Jose Vega was showing videos like earlier on before he decided to run. Remember he was showing videos of his of Richie Torres' district.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah. We have this from Chris saying, "Greetings, Sabby, JB, and RBN fam. JB, I hope you had time to review my blueprint. I actually have, and I do have my thoughts." He says, "By the way, I'm putting a league together. More to come." Interesting. Is it a bowling league? Holla at your boy. I don't think it's a bowling league, but I think it's some type of league. But we'll get into that later in private messages. All right. So Roger Meadow says DSA has chapters in all 50. Why DSA not running CBIAs? I guess think he meant all 50 states. And why is DSA not running citizen ballot initiative amendments? I mean, they should.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Like if you really are about passing legislation, you guys have DSA and ballot initiative states. Why aren't you pushing ballot initiatives? Like I said, they are deeply unserious. Roger says this: DSA plan to go to those communities is gentrify them ones. Damn, Roger.
That was brutal, Roger. That was pretty brutal there.
Ouch. Okay. Let's go to this one. Justin B. Good to see you, Justin. Justin says, if we have a party that focuses on mutual aid and builds community continuously, we can be organized when we need to, example, for elections or ballot initiatives. The important thing is solidarity. Yeah.
Yep. There you go.
Agreed. And also, thank you very much for this as well, Justin B. He says, the best model for an electoral party is to have candidates that are from the community and have been invested in the community. It shouldn't be a candidate or party from the outside. It's best if it comes from within. From within, Sabs.
Well, that's why, like that's why someone like Rashida was able to win. Like that's why some like people who are from that, not people who, because for those who don't know, like sometimes like candidates or potential candidates, they will move to an area that they know that they could probably do well in, but they're not from that area. It's things like that.
Like Cenk Uygur. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
He did that?
Yeah, he moved to the area before he started running.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I didn't know that one. I did not know that.
Big contention in one of the debates that he was in. You just moved here.
Yeah, I don't like that. I do not like when people do that at all.
Yeah. Like what?
Nah.
All right. We have Roger coming in again. Roger's coming in hot. He said, help people locally, then people will support you. Duh. It's like, why can't they get this through their head? I know why.
Yeah.
I know why.
People right there in the neighborhood. Get those people.
Yeah, look, I hate to put it this way, but you gotta Mr. Rogers that shit. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Like, you gotta love to be the neighbor. Do the neighborly thing. Shout out to Kit, who was in the chat with the Gators going on. Good to see you, Chit. No, Kit, sorry. I said his name with a CH. Like chit chat. Oh my gosh. Anyway. I mean, we do like to chit chat with Kit, but anyway.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Me and the way my brain thinks. Anyway, also Nick was in the chat. Come on out, says banger after banger.
Hey.
And he said I was looking sexy. I got my purple on like Prince. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we don't have much time for the rest of the chat, unfortunately, because we do have a hard stop at 6:30. But I want to make sure that we get to Sabby to also talk about once.
I'm sorry. It's funny.
You know what? You know what? The song came into my head as soon as I saw that. Chitty chitty bang bang.
Yeah. Bang, bang, chitty, chitty, bang, bang, chitty, chitty, bang, bang.
Remember that part in Ace Ventura when Naked Shirt's called when he's driving the Humvee or the Jeep? He's like, hi, chitty chitty bang bang.
I haven't seen that movie in a long time. I need to go back and watch that. I did see The Mask. I forgot to tell you about this. Last time when I was traveling, The Mask with Jim Carrey, that movie with him and Cameron Diaz, that was on TV. And I hadn't seen that since I was like a teen. Like that was one of my favorite movies at the time. Because I love The Mask. Yes, I love The Mask. I love the song, the singing and dancing and all that stuff. So yeah.
Oh yeah. They call me Cuban Pete. I'm the king of the rumba beat. When I dance, go cheek cheeky boom, cheek cheeky boom, cheek cheeky boom.
Boom.
Let me shut up. We watched that show that movie like crazy when we were little. Oh my God. Me, my brother, and my mom. And we would be dying laughing at The Mask. Oh my goodness.
We would watch Jim Carrey movies over and over because they were so funny.
Mm-hmm. You'd be like, hold on, sugar. Daddy's got a sweet tooth tonight. Let me stop. Sabs, you got on Oliver Stone coming on tonight.
Oliver Stone, we recorded yesterday with Dan Kovalik. So Oliver Stone and Dan Kovalik, and then Scott Ritter is coming on at 9. So
okay, nice.
Yeah.
It's going to be a foreign policy heavy show tonight.
And we're talking about domestic. I have domestic too. I have Democrats trying to rig the New York primary, or the New York mayor race, excuse me. So I'm talking about that as well. And I am talking about the backlash that came from the Essence Festival. Gotta talk about that. Gotta talk about that.
There is a lot of backlash. The Essence is lacking essence. Baby, let me tell you. But with that being said, let's give a shout out to the patrons before we head out. I just want to give a shout out to all of you guys for making this channel possible, because without you guys, RBN would not exist. And it's because of this that you guys allow us to be able to inform you, to tell you what's really going on from an anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist perspective, because this world really needs people to be well informed. We talk about history. Like, if you do not study, you're doomed to repeat it. And we have to know what's going on around us in order to be able to know what's wrong, right? Channels like this are really just a diagnostic of the system. And we're saying, yeah, it's no good. We got to throw it out. We have to replace it, just like an engine, just like a transmission. And so we do that while also doing mutual aid on the ground and trying to help out our communities day in and day out whenever we can. And so we just appreciate you guys allowing us to be able to do this, so that we can not only inform you, but also encourage you by not just talking the talk, but walking the walk as well. You guys made this possible. And so a huge hearty thank you from the top and bottom of our hearts. All right, Sabs. Anything else? Wait, we had a super chat. I'm going to make sure. Roger says, candidates start CBI with their campaign and align both. Absolutely. Thank you so very much for that, Roger. All right, everybody. Sabs, last words.
Smoke them if you got them.